everybody to the ordinary meeting of the council. Can we stand up to cut here?
Toru ka.
Kia tauranga ki tana te rea maro, ki ora ki tena o tātou, ki mahia te hua ki ki, ki toi te tuku, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, ki tutu, ka whakamama, ki tina, hui e tāi.
Thank you very much. Have we any conflicts of interest? No conflict of interest. We have apologies from Councillor Johnson and Councillor Tita. I'll move those accepted. Councillor Bayer, all in favour? Aye. Thank you. We have no one in public forum and we have no late items. So we go on to page 6, amendments to the Wairarapa Consolidated Bylaw 2019 Part 10 Traffic Bylaw. Matt Steele.
Morning. We'll try and make this quick. So we've received a request from Brian's Furniture about the creation of a loading zone alongside the side of the building on Railway Crescent. They have spoken to the people who share the building with them, so the owners of the Shake Shop. We have no objections to the creation of this loading zone. I've been down and looked at the site. There's plenty of parking available both out front of Brian's Furniture and also all along Railway Crescent. So we're proposing that you would agree to the creation of the loading zone for Brian's Furniture, and then the roading team will get down and get it set up for them.
Any questions for Matt? Councillor Helena.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Have there been any surveys of local residents there in terms of current impact?
Not that I'm aware of. The housing is quite a bit further along Railway Crescent, so it shouldn't impact them where they are, having been down there themselves. Not any housing in the immediate area that I expect to be affected. The other thing is the loading zone would only be essentially during the working hours, Monday to Friday, so people on the weekends and on weeknights and stuff that would not be
Any other questions? Is somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 6, 1 to 3? Moved by Councillor Helena, seconded by Councillor Bayer. Any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the recommendations. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Again, carried. Thank you, Matt. Page 12, 2024-34 long-term plan community outcomes. Tanya, who's just going to take this?
Kia ora. So the first paper regarding LTP today is the community outcomes paper. Community outcomes are essentially what council is aiming to achieve for our community to deliver on the wellbeing requirements under legislation. They're aspirational and basically what we want to achieve for the community. At the moment we're proposing that we roll forward the outcomes that we had in the 2021 LTP. We believe they're still applicable for the community for 2024. And what we are proposing is that we will develop a statement of what that means for this council through the coming months through consultation. We also have a review of the wellbeing strategy, which these outcomes align with, scheduled in year 1 of the LTP. And so it would be appropriate to review those outcomes for the 2027 LTP once we've completed that piece of work. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Tanya. Any questions for Tanya? No questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 12, 1 and 2. Moved by Councillor Learning, seconded by Councillor Bayer. Any further discussion? All those in favour, say aye. Sorry, Councillor Lena.
Yeah, I think as I mentioned once before, certainly from my perspective, words are powerful, and we have vision statements and we have core outcome statements, and those words are important to drive commitment, motivation. And I think going forward in this next long-term plan, we need to get our core statements right. We want them to be motivating for us as councillors and as staff and as our community. So personally, some of the wording there, they don't make me want to get up and work hard for this community. I mean, I do that anyway, but I'm not hugely inspired by some of these words. In terms of the descriptors, I think the descriptors are clearer and more specific, and for me they're more inspiring. So I would like to see us actually change this wording so it truly reflects what this council is about for the next 3 to 10 years.
Thank you, Councillor Helena. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodwin.
Just a query on the Hood Airdrome rationale for service delivery. Where it says that it support passenger freight and ambulance services. I just do wonder if that wording is...
Sorry, Councillor Goodwin, which page are you referring to?
What page are you on? I think you might be on
Page
the wrong
20.
next. I think you're in Tuesday.
Probably going to
That was last week, Brent.
We are on page 12 at the moment. Okay, so I've had a mover from Councillor Lennox, seconded by Councillor Bowyer, that the recommendations on page 12. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We now move to page 16, 2024-2034 long-term plan activity groups. Tanya.
So this second report for LTP, as it states, is about the activity groups. So under legislation, we actually have to set out what our activity groups are and what's included in each group of activities. So there are mandatory groups that we have to have, which we've included there, and that are roads and footpaths, water supply, wastewater and stormwater. Beyond that, it's up to council what we have and how we structure those. Our previous LTP had community facilities parks as one, regulatory as another, and strategy, leadership and governance as another. We've looked at those and we believe that they're still appropriate to structure our LTP for this coming 24 to 34 LTP. The point of the activity groups is that they help to structure the LTP document, and our reporting back to council all aligns with that. From a community point of view, it helps the community to understand what we deliver, how we contribute to wellbeing with that activity group, and what major levels of service sit within that activity group, and their performance measures for that group. So everything sort of was framed around those. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Tanya? Councillor Goodwin.
Page 20, just that wording on that. Hood. Do we support passenger freight services, or do we provide an airport to a certain standard?
So the descriptor there says that HOD supports passenger freight ambulance services, encourages economic development in a place for aviation-related businesses and events.
Have you got what's your point?
Well, it just doesn't read right to me. We provide an airport, and to the standard that we do, and it is used by ambulance services and may be used for other things. It just doesn't sound right.
What it's saying there, Councillor Goodwin, is that's what HOD does. It supports passenger freight and ambulance services, encourages economic development of a place for aviation-related businesses and events. It's just a description of what it does. I think it's pretty. Okay, somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 16. The recommendation is just that we adopt the proposed activity group. Moved Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Helena. Any further discussion? Put the motion all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We then go to page 21, which is the 2024-34 long-term plan performance measures framework. Tanya, you're there again.
So as I just mentioned, the activity groups are the big level of what we're doing. The performance measures align with the activity groups. We undertook a full review of performance measures in 2021 for that LTP, and Council agreed for the 24 LTP to undertake a lighter review. So what we have looked at is just some of the measures that might need to be tweaked slightly. The recommendation are relatively minor changes. They're outlined on page 23 of the report, and that is essentially to remove two measures. One relates to housing and meeting housing standards, which our council actually met approximately 12-18 months ago, so that is now BAU, and we don't feel it is something that needs to be highlighted. The other measure that we're proposing to remove relates to the wet trail usage. We have trackers in the area that have not been performing well. We haven't been able to perform on that, report on that measure for approximately 3 years, and there's quite a big investment required to be able to continue that, so we're proposing to take that measure out. We have revised targets for two measures. One relates to waste, and that is to align our waste targets with the waste management minimisation plan that was recently adopted. And the other one relates to swimming pool inspections, and that is to align with the legislative requirements for the timelines for inspections going forward. There's a couple of other minor tweaks. They're all highlighted from page 27 in the attachment, just to wording to make things clearer or to be a little bit more accurate and precise in how we describe them.
Any questions for Talia? Councillor Goodman?
So the performance measures, I'd like to have a look at a couple of them. The footpaths, the descriptor, I think, could be better. When you look at the wording in the asset management plan on what we are calling average condition is actually described in the asset management plan as also needing work. I don't think that I don't think it aligns with the words used in the asset management plan so well. And the other one was on wastewater. Why can't we just use for the volumes of wastewater, we have that annual, we have the average volume per day, page 28 of the asset management plan. Why not just divide that by the population so that we've got one with water, 578 or whatever it is, litres per capita per day, and we could have, 672 litres per capita wastewater out. It's just an easy number to use. It's just another way of expressing our data, and I think it makes it clearer for the public.
Some of the measures in there are mandatory, so we do have to follow DIA guidance around how we report on those.
I'm talking about adding this voluntarily.
Adding an additional, we have workshopped that, and there was, I think, probably if Phil was in the room, might be easier to respond to that, but I understand we're going to look at what data is available and whether we can progress something for the 2027 LTP with regard to wastewater.
Yeah, I was suggesting putting this in now.
Phil, did you want to expand on that wastewater?
Good morning, councillors. As Tanya says, we did workshop this a couple of weeks ago now, I think it was, and you saw the data was quite skewed because of the recent rainfall events, and we've recommended a rolling 5-year average, which we will report as a non-mandatory measure, and then work that into the next cycle of the LTP. So we will report on it, but not through the LTP process, probably through water risk, I think we've discussed. So that would be the and as we went through the workshop, because we've had these rainfall events for the last few years, that really does skew the data, so that's why we've recommended that 5-year rolling average. And we will continue to report that as a non-mandatory item.
So we'll develop the data so we have something to draw on for the 2027 LTP.
But you're saying that if it rains a lot between now and then, we won't be able to do that. It doesn't, to me, you know, rainfall events, this plan is full of climate change, more likely to have more intense rainfall events, which will affect. The other measure I'd like to put in also, wet weather overflows on the wastewater system. It's, you know, we've got dry weather overflows, and that's a mandatory measure. I'd like to voluntarily include wet weather overflows, because it rains quite a lot here, and if our systems can't withstand rain, I think we've got a bit of a problem. So yeah, the wet weather overflows for wastewater and reporting the data, which is straight out of your plan, in terms of litres per capita per day. Two things I would like it to add into wastewater.
Brent, if I could just get Karen to make a comment.
Good morning, councillors. Yes, unfortunately that will take some work to work up that the proposal around what a meaningful target and outcome would be around those measures. We haven't done the work on that. We need to consult on these performance indicators if they're to go into our long-term plan rather than being informal ones. And so they would need to be approved today in order to be able to go to audit so that we can go out for consultation on those. And we just simply don't have time to do that. But what I could suggest is that, as we talked about in the workshop, Councillor, that if there are measures that you would like us to work up, we can do that over the next year, report on those informally through our annual plan and annual reporting process, and then when we've got some robust data that we know that we are communicating in a meaningful way to the community, we can then include those in the next long-term plan.
So I hear what you're saying, but I'm not convinced. This is some data we have and have had for many, many years. The volume that goes through Homewood, and we wouldn't need, I don't believe we would need to do any work to put that in as an measure. As I say, you divide the volume by the number of people, and it could be in. It doesn't, I don't think it needs any work. It's just, and it's not changing any data, it's just expressing it in a different way. That's all, and I don't, you know, I don't believe that needs any work other than some pretty simple mathematics that any school child could do.
That would just simply be a statement of current state. The purpose of the performance indicators is us to be able to improve our service. So we would need to be able to develop from what the current state is, some improvement. And that would need to be targets identified around that. We don't currently know what's causing all of the issues. We're working through that process now. So as we talked about in that workshop, Councillor, we need to be able to do more work and have some robust data so that we can end up at a point to say, actually, improving our service means that we are reducing these infiltration or reducing the outputs this amount over this many years. We haven't done that work today to be able to include all of that information in here, to be able to go to audit or to be able to go out to consultation.
We haven't got that sort of analysis
No.
and commentary around drinking water usage, local water usage. I cannot feel like I see why we can't just take this number that we members agree and pop it in.
We wouldn't be meeting the requirements of the Local Government Act in terms of decision making. We haven't provided you with an assessment of what those targets might be in order for you to be able to make an informed decision about whether you want to include those as informal targets within your long-term plan. So we just simply haven't done the work in order to be able to sign off on this document today. If we don't sign off on this document today, we're going to miss our audit window, unfortunately. But we can include that, we can include them as informal measures, and we can include them when we've got robust data in a long-term plan the next time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brent. Councillor Nelson?
It's just a lot of legal speak. It was quite confused. So every single other measure in here has gone through every step of the process that you just raised, through the chair, Karen.
No, all the other measures are mandatory measures. The DIA sets them, and then we can choose what targets we want in order to be able to meet those measures. And that's the work that we've done around these ones that are currently in the LTP. What we're talking about here are additional measures to those mandatory ones. So we need to do some work on making sure that they are actually robust and they're going to tell us something about our service and how we're improving those service. I'm not saying that it's terribly difficult, I'm just saying that we haven't done that work to include it in this document to go out to consultation. But what we can do is take the time over the next year, we can report to Audit and Risk or Infrastructure and Services Committee on how we're doing that and having that as an informal measure. And then when we've got confidence that it's actually telling us something that we need to understand about our service, then we can include it in the long-term plan next time.
So council staff, would that be beneficial, what Councillor Bivens recommending?
Certainly
Phil?
look into it.
It's up to you, councillor. We report on flows.
You're an expert. No, would that be beneficial, Councillor Bivens?
So from my point of view, we report on those figures as part of our resource consent application every year. So we are constantly reporting that monthly inflows continuously, monthly and annually to GW. So we have the data, and we monitor it internally to see what's happening with the system. The question here is what data does the council want to see in terms of these performance measures? I can provide you any data you like, councillor, but in terms of what council answers and how
I'm just answering Phil's question. So it sounds like there's a councillor who wants that information, but you're saying it's too difficult to do right now, so we're not going to get that information.
No, because I'm not saying it's not too difficult, we just haven't done the work today. We're asking you for approval so this information can go to audit, as these are our performance measures. If we want to add in more, then we'll miss that audit window basically. And then we won't be able to have an audit opinion back in time for when we need to consult. So I'm just saying, unfortunately, if we'd have done the work up till now, if we'd have known about Councillor Goodwin's intentions about putting these in, we could have done the work. And if we'd have come up with something robust, we could have then put them into this plan. But unfortunately, we haven't done that. And we just need to go away and do that work. So we can pick that up and we can come back to Audit and Risk or Infrastructure and Services and report on that if they're good piece of work to do and good indicators that are actually telling us something about our service.
So can
Councillor Hunt?
Yes, I don't disagree with what Brent's saying. I don't think we should be doing it this year, but we should look forward to the next time around. What I'd like to say is that there is information, Phil, about the inflow into the homeless area and the outflow. And we also get regular updates on rainfall events on graphs. I think probably more important that we must realise too, going forward with our consent, we're still only treating 12% of our water going on the land. The rest is going to the river, and then the river's above normal flow. So we just must remember that.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other question? Councillor Helena?
I need to apologise. I left my glasses behind and some of the fine print tables I can't actually read, but I had made notes. First, I also support Councillor Wilmot's perspective. For example, measuring dry weather sewage overflows, I think we know that that's going to be pretty okay. Our issue is in the wet weather, and for me it makes a lot more sense to set a target for reducing the wet weather overflows, and so I'd certainly like us to look at that as soon as we can. The other point I want to make is that other successful organisations I've been in, when we've set targets, the targets are not necessarily business as usual, or they're not necessarily what we can achieve, it's what we're aspiring to achieve. And I see some of the targets there, for example, in regulatory services, in response time. For the last 2 years, we've been 94% successful, 95% successful, and we set a target for the next year as at 90%. And I think as an organisation focused on improving, we should be setting targets that are raising the game for us, so we're an improving organisation and better meeting the needs of our community. So again, I'd like us to look at our targets, and I know it's been a pressured time to get this out, and I fully support the main areas that we're reporting on, and just want to acknowledge all the hard work that's been done to get us to this point by council staff, and I know there's been a lot of work in there, but for me, those targets should be ambitious and beyond business as usual.
Thank you, Councillor Lana. Any further questions? Councillor Goodwin.
Trying to see a way forward to this simple problem of just changing the way our data is reported, which seems to be so strongly resisted.
No, that's not true. Karen did mention that it would go to audit and risk, and this would be taken to audit and risk meeting. It just wouldn't be done here, that's all.
Yeah, it just simply won't be here for 3 years. I don't understand what that means. But what I'm saying is that I have such confidence in translating a piece of data from cubic metres per day to litres per day per capita. It is just a simple mathematical translation. The work to do it is under 10 seconds, and we could put it in and see what the auditor says about it. I can't possibly see any risk in changing the expression of data from cubic metres per day to litres per capita per day. It's the same data. It's just expressing it differently.
Thank you, Councillor.
So it won't be illegal, it won't contravene the Local Government Act, and it won't cause us any problem.
Thank you. Any further questions? So the recommendations are on page 21. Somebody prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Bayard? Do you see that, Councillor Hyde? Sorry?
Sorry.
Councillor?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Can I just signal that I'll move I want to make an amendment that
We already have a mover and seconder. So that, you're going to move an amendment to the
to the motion that we include with wastewater a measure of number of wet weather overflows, and also the expression of the volume going through to Homebush. We simply we have a measure expressing the literage per capita per day on average as under reporting.
Okay. We'll just see if we've got a second to that.
I'll second that. But just to comment on that, if you we have a lot of trade and a lot of other industry that's discharging into wastewater networks, so it's a difficult measure really if you're dividing it by the number of people or the population, when we've got hospitals and various other industry that are discharging into wastewater networks. So that measure may give a false illustration really. It's just my
Couldn't you say the same about it? It's just a measure, and this is 8% of our flow is waste, trade waste. You could say that the measure we have for water, 578 litres, you could put all sorts, you could Karen, could spend weeks working on qualifiers around that. But it's just a measure. And it's,
Okay, we've got your
it's a valuable
amendment.
way to inform the public which direction and how we're performing.
Do we have the amendment,
Would you like me to
Eric?
read it? To add that a measure of the number of wet weather overflows is included in the wastewater measure and the expression of the volume going through to Homebush as litres per capita per day.
happy with that?
Was it wet weather overflows?
You'll need to also set the target today if that resolution is to go through.
Sorry, I can't read it. Could you just read that out again?
That we include in the wastewater a measure of the number of wet weather overflows and the expression of the volume going through to Homebush as litres per capita per day.
Yes.
Okay, we'll read that. Okay, I'm going to put the amendment. We've got a second? Got a second from Tom. Put the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Yeah.
The amendment is lost. We now then go back to the recommendation, which is on page 21. People got to move the recommendation of Councillor Bowyer moving, Councillor Holmes seconded.
Mr Mayor, could we just see the numbers on that amendment, please? It's showing it. Okay.
We've now got the recommendation going forward. All those in favour of the recommendation, please say aye. Aye. Against? It is a pass. Thank you. We now move to page 45, Masterton Town Centre improvements. Consultation options for the 2024-34 long-term plan. Phil Evans.
Thank you, Worship. Good morning, councillors, and hello again. Just briefly, I'll take the report as read. We've been through this process with workshops and discussions quite a bit, so just note that the options that we're taking up for consultation relate to either just do the replacement of the critical infrastructure for the CBD, in road and water, or as well the alternative for consultation is to carry out the full redevelopment of phase 1 and 2 of Queen Street as per the earlier designs we've got in place. I would just also note attached to this report a summary of the parking strategy that was presented previously, just for information to illustrate what the parking resources is there as well. So, as I say, take the report as read and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Phil? No questions. Okay, we then move to the recommendations. Somebody need to move the recommendations on page 45. Moved by Councillor Lennon, seconded by Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion? Right, Councillor Bailey.
Phil, thank you very much for the report. I just want to just state here that as this goes forward, I will in no way support the removal of total on-street parking. I believe the parking we have in town is paramount to businesses and we have an ageing population, and I believe the mobility parking is key for that. So while I support us doing this work, I in no way support the reduction of parking in the main street.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. I too, yes, the parking strategy was an excellent presentation, but I too agree with Councillor Bailey there and what we need to retain. Also, just around, I guess, a message to the community. I know that back in the day when this was sort of first talked about part of this council, there was a lot of strong feelings and work went around the CBD upgrade. And I know that when I was campaigning, a lot of people talked about it and felt that the town needed a bit of rejuvenation. You know, we were sort of feeling a little bit we were behind the times. So I really do ask the community, when this does come out to consultation, to think really carefully, especially that in a business group of people, of how you want us to hear your thoughts on this. And also, no, I think that was actually it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, because it's been mentioned, I don't believe that presentation on parking was of quality. I really questioned the data shared around 1 PM, and since that time I've taken photographs, been in town regularly at that time, and it has completely contradictory to what the Essence report about parking at the West Sherman involved. I think it's a flawed report.
Interestingly enough, by a friend of mine doing exactly what you did and had exactly the opposite reaction.
You should compare photos.
Anyway, that's one of those things. So we've had a mover of the recommendations, Councillor Elena, seconded Councillor Lennox. A further discussion here?
I just want to comment on that parking survey. Since the proposal to turn Green Street into something out of Amsterdam has been floating around for quite a few years, I have paid a lot of attention to the parking there, and I totally agree with what Councillor Nelson said. That study was bizarre. The one that's quoted.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I say I've had the opposite reaction from a number of people. Anyway, I'm putting the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We now move to page 85, civic facility consultation options for the 2024-34 long-term plan, and Phil will be doing that as well, and Lisa, okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will defer to Lisa.
Okay. Yep. Thanks, Phil. So I'll take the paper as read.
Speak up.
Take the paper as read. Everyone hear me? But I will give a verbal update on the quotes for demolition that came through from the three companies that we went out to estimate for. So before I start that, I just want to admit to a wee moment of madness when writing the paper. On page 9 it says so that the estimates to retain the facade.
What page is that?
On page 9 of the paper. So we sent a scope of work to 5 companies to quote on the demolition of the town hall because of the project advisory group. The estimate was questioned, so we went out to validate that estimate. I say in the paper that the estimate to retain the facade wasn't included. It should never have been included. So the demolition of that site does not include retaining the facade. So of the 5 estimates that we sent out, we got 3 back. I'm comparing these to the quantity surveyor cost, which was 2.8 million to demolish the town hall. The estimates that we got back, the highest was 2.9 million, the lowest was 1.1 million, and the midpoint was 1.3. All of the above exclude contingency. So the 2.8 from the quantity surveyor excluded contingency as well. The 3.3 that we said was demolition included contingency.
So just for clarity, Your Worship and Councillors, we're talking about page 94 of the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Okay, yes.
This has got the report printed out, but
Yes.
it's not numbered the same as the agenda, of course, so I apologise for that.
So that lowest quote, the 1.1, is sort of the outlier. It doesn't include some key things such as removal of contaminated soil, backfill and compacting the site, making good. It only allows 5k for traffic management, which on a state highway is really low, and 8k for fencing. That's quite a big site. 8k is not enough for fencing. So there was some, and then the next lowest quote also didn't include site fencing, and the actual cost of just the demolition itself was less than half of the other quotes. So the one that's closest to the estimate, to the QS estimate, the 2.9, looks the most complete, robust estimate, to be honest. So, yes, so in fact, there's only 100k between the QS estimate and the highest estimate from the demolition companies.
So happy to take questions, Councillors.
No, questions. Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Lennox.
Is that firm, though, that did that, has someone spoken to them? They're quite a large, long-established firm.
So the estimates were desktop-only exercises. So as was the QS, to be honest. So
No, we haven't gone back, and bear in mind, it was for this comparison exercise, it wasn't to award work. We will go back out to the companies and they will be able to come on site and inspect the site. So we didn't go back to them to question. They all had the same information, the scope of work, which was quite detailed. That was sent out.
Right, Councillor Lilly?
Thank you. Thank you. Just a query. Why is it that on the 14th of the 2nd we had our workshop around this, slide 42 gave the preferred option, which is obviously option 3, but then we did have the 2 alternative options that we agreed we were going to include in the consultation document, being the demo of the hall and the municipal buildings, and then the other, which has now been recommended to not include in the consultation, demo town hall, build new and refurb multiple. Why is it suddenly now recommend that we don't include it in the consultation? Because I was on the understanding that we were going to give the community the 3
Yeah,
options.
as we say in the paper, that we don't believe it's a viable option for consultation. We've got the evidence or the advice from both the engineers and the architect that it's not actually, and we also know that all council functions will not fit in the municipal building. We can only fit 110 people in that building, so we would need to retain another premise, the Waiata House or Queen Street.
But is it not for the community? We consulted with them to give them the options. I thought it would be up to us as leaders to enable the community to tell us what it is they want, not us dictate to them what we believe is possible.
It's only a recommendation from the council staff not to include it in the consultation, of course.
Okay. Well, I would like to possibly...
We will come to that point. Councillor Lennox. So, yes, Sharon.
So yeah, just following up from what Lisa's saying about recommendations. So at the workshop we did present the information to you with the advice from the engineers and the architects, and looking at the risks that option poses to us. It's my view that option isn't a viable option for the purposes of the Local Government Act decision-making requirements, which basically requires us that we have to present options to you and to the community when we go out to consultation that are reasonably practicable options. What we're saying as officers is that particular option is so risky because we don't know that those are going to be the costs, because we don't know until we get there and start poking around what we're going to find, and that's pretty much what the experts are saying. So on that basis, that information and that quote is not the same as the other ones, because we've got more confidence in those other 2 options that actually that's pretty much what we're likely to get. Hopefully we'll get it for cheaper once we start, taking our contingencies down. So what we're saying is that option doesn't stack up against the other options. When we put that, if we put that out to the community, that nuance may well get lost. People look at the figures, they look at what the options are. They probably won't take into account all of those risks, even if we put some caveats in there around the consultation document. I don't know that we're going to be able to do a sufficient job to be able to say there's this, but it might not be that until we start looking around. So in my view, and it's my responsibility, I really couldn't recommend that we included that as an option to go into the consultation document. And just another word on the putting information out to consultation. Consultation is for us to seek feedback from the community. It's not delegating the decisions to the community. The council, if there's really good reasons why that we shouldn't pursue even the top answer, for example, from the community, numbers are not what it's all about. It's the quality of the information and the feedback that we get from the community. It's not how many people say that. It's not a vote, and it's also not a delegation or a derogation of our decision making. So you still have that ability to weigh up all of that information when we get back from the community to say what's that best option. So they're the legal requirements, and then there's also the practical matters which Lisa's brought up. That option still doesn't do what we think that option that needs to do. It doesn't stack up against the other ones. That's why.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Nelson.
just want to comment that that's one of the most patronising things I've ever heard in my life. Just a question in regards to the
Hang on a second, you're talking to an officer here in public, and that's not a very good comment to make. I won't make that point.
I'm very disappointed with that feedback just then. I think that's patronising towards our community. This is a community that fought to have option, or the equivalent option 3, and you were part of supporting for 3 years.
Tim, all I'm saying is that Karen is giving an officer's opinion, which officers are asked to do, and she's giving it honestly and straightforwardly, and to use the word patronising, I believe, is unfair.
Okay, you have that view, I believe it's patronising. Around the demolition of the hall, David Borman suggested around $200,000.
So
Now,
just-
where does that fit in this?
Actually, site fencing is about 30k. Traffic management, on average, is about, the highest one is 50k. We're not even talking about getting the site demolished yet.
Yes.
So the company who Dave Borman recommended we talk to, they were invited to a quote, provide an estimate. I've contacted them 3 times. I was rudely spoken to by their office person. Shane spoke to me twice. I said, look, just last night or the night before, I said, if you can get it to me by Wednesday morning at the latest, I'll give a verbal update at the council meeting. Silence. I've received nothing from them. So they have had every opportunity to provide an estimate, and they haven't.
The quantity surveyor reported that when we had the PAG meeting, he gave his breakdown of the costs around destroying it at the time.
Yep.
And he did a detailed explanation. And at the time, he was including the retained for retention of the facade.
No, so...
No, he did. He specifically, at the time, he has justified the price, and that was including retaining the
So
facade.
I've got the breakdown here, and it doesn't include retaining the facade. So removal of contaminated soil from the site, the quotes that we have here range from a QS estimate of 614,000 to the lowest at 458,000, just to remove contaminated soil from the site.
So just to verify, that confirms to me that the quantity surveyor we had that day was way off the mark.
No, these are the quantity surveyor estimates.
No,
here.
but what he said on that day, he gave us a detailed explanation
We have the
of what,
quantity
just let me finish, Lisa, of why it was costing that amount, and his explanation was around the retention of the facade. Do you remember that, councillor Lennox, at that meeting?
The quantity surveyor.
Yeah, that's fine. And Dave Borman asked him about the cost of knocking down
I
everything.
don't believe the quantity surveyor has actually been to any of the meetings.
He was the person, he was on that presentation. Who was that person?
Oh, that was the architect, or
That wasn't the architect.
James.
That he was explaining the concept of the QS's perspective.
Yeah, so
So he
the
was
QS estimate does not include retaining the facade, because there will be no facade left if we just demolish that site.
So just to be clear, so what that person said that day was incorrect.
He would have made a mistake, but I can tell you the quantity surveyor cost did not include retaining the facade.
So he made a significant mistake out of the expert. And I'm looking forward to your amendment to the motion, councillor Evans, as well, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Any further questions for Lydia?
I've got a concern about the cost of the contaminated tank, because it was only a tank. You know how big it was, like, did you say $600,000?
So
I know what contamination's about.
So these are estimates.
Yeah.
So they range from the lowest estimate, so it's removal of contaminated soil.
Yeah.
So that's not just the tank, it's the asbestos as well from the building.
But you're talking soil.
So removal of contaminated soil is the line that I've read out here. Costs range from 614,000 to 458,000.
That seems to...
So bear in mind, these are estimates.
I know, that's
At
what
the
worries
moment.
me, estimates are so open.
But councillor, I think when we go out to market to get a tender for this, we're going to get very accurate figures. So
Okay.
it's a little bit irrelevant.
I accept that,
QS
but I was just querying the cost, just like I absolutely...
There will be site visits
That's fine.
when we go
That's fine.
out to tender, and these have been desktop exercises based on benchmark rates.
You've highlighted that you only reduced on.
Yeah.
Any further questions for Lisa? No further questions. The recommendations are on page 85. You will think, Councillor Lynn?
Yes, can I make an amendment to one of the recommendations, please? So I would like to remove the corrected wording, recommend do not include in consultation, and ask the council to consider, obviously, that we add option 2 as a open option for the community to speak against.
Read it. So this is, where are you putting that?
So 89, page 89, you've got option 1, option 2, and option 3.
Yep.
Option 2, in brackets, it says recommend do not include in consultation. I'd like to recommend that we do include option 2 in consultation.
The recommendations are actually on page 85.
Okay.
So which one are you changing now?
Okay, so sorry.
C.
C.
Okay. So you're just wanting, does proceed to the LTP consultation?
Yes, I want that. Yes, I want option C, that option 2 goes through to the LTP consultation.
Or Gary, sorry, Mayor.
Yeah, Karen.
We could amend 1B to approve as alternative options for consultation, option 1 description and then option 2.
Oh, okay. That's
Yep.
just
So you're just adding both of those in as alternate options?
Correct.
Is that,
Yep, so the community, we can consult with the community on the preferred option and the 2 alternative options.
Okay, do we have a second? Yes,
So just, sorry, can it just be spelled out again? So
Well, what we're doing is
we've got
a-
option, there is option 3.
You're on page 85.
Yeah. Option 3, demolish the town hall and municipal building, build a new town hall and expand wider house. We have option 1, demolish the lot and stay as we are. And you said change that?
So the proposal from Councillor Lennox is that, so on 1C, we have do not include that option 2 within the consultation, and the amendment proposes that we do include it, so we could add in to 1B, approve as alternative options for consultation, option 1 and option 2. So 3 is the preferred, and option 1 and 2 proceed as alternatives.
And C would come right out.
Yep.
C would come out. And D would.
So the community would have 3 options to
Yeah.
discuss.
Okay, so you happy with that, Councillor Lynn?
Yes, thank you.
And Councillor Nelson is second. Any further discussion?
I suppose that the only discussion I would make is these 2 councillors on the working committee, and they have a lot, they've heard a lot more information than probably we as outsiders have heard.
Thank you.
I'd like to just, thank you, Councillor Holmes. Yes, I also would like to just say that I am obviously part of the project advisory group, and there's been some extremely well fleshed out conversation around the table when we meet. A really good, varied group of people and varying opinions, and we're not always on the same page, but my heart is that I want to be able to listen to exactly what the community want to say on this very hot topic, and I think if we don't give them the opportunity to freely speak on all options, then like Tim says, we're doing them injustice. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
Thanks,
Lynn. Okay, I'm going to put the amendment, which is, I'm sure you've got it, it's A is in still, B is approve the alternative option for consultations from option 1 to both option 1 and option 2. C comes out, D's fine, and the library and archives are as stated. Okay, if you're happy with that, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Again? Carried. Okay, we then move on to page number 101, which is the key long-term plan documentation approval for the audit review. And that is no Paris, is it?
I'm going to kick off once I get to page 101. large document that contains everything else that we're proposing for the long-term plan consultation document. So the purpose of the report coming to you today is, as we've talked about previously, audit are currently here. We're providing some background information to them, but these are the key documents that we need to give to audit in order for them to be able to give their opinion on what the consultation document will look like. So this is the culmination of all of the 15 to 18 months work that we've been working through with our budgets and with our priorities, aside from those earlier reports that Tanya has taken us through. So there's two key points that we're seeking agreement from Council today. And the first one is approving the key documentation for audit review, and that's ahead of that approval, so we'll come back to you with hopefully the successful audit opinion, so I to go out to consultation in April. So that's key content for the consultation document, the financial and infrastructure strategies, and our significant assumptions, which are those assumptions on which the whole plan and the budgets are based. So they're really important for us to understand exactly what is underpinning the proposals that we put forward. The second point is for you to approve as preferred and alternative options for consultation issues. We've just talked through the town centre upgrade and the civic facility. That's going to be the town hall and library proposals. We also have within there changes to council funding for community groups. That's one of the key consultation issues. Reductions based on the work that council has done to determine efficiencies and throughout the organisation, and that's through the facilitation of plans and strategies. So all of that detail is contained within attachment 1, so you might need to swap over in your Stellar document to the attachment 1. I will just take you through that proposed layout, so that's really what the content of the consultation document is. So this is what we're giving to audit. We're still working through actually drafting the consultation document, but here are all the key points that are going to go into that so that audit can review and give us their opinion. So those will be those key consultation issues that I've just talked about and identifying what the preferred and alternative options are. And then we move on to engagement topics. Now those are topics that we haven't got all the information at this point, or we're really early in the process of our thinking around a couple of matters, so we're just seeking some feedback from the community. It's not part of those big consultation items. And that's around Penny Lake and Remembrance Lake consents, and how we deliver our customer services. We had some feedback through our annual plan document last year. We want to take that work a little bit further forward and ask the community how they engage with our customer services so we can provide a really good, efficient service. We then move on to information topics, and that's really our opportunity within the long-term plan consultation document to actually provide information out to the community about what we're proposing within that next 10 years. We're not seeking specific feedback in terms of providing options for people to choose, but it's just information so that they can see where the council's been working over the last 15 to 18 months. And those are your key priorities around investing in our infrastructure, and that's around increasing funding for Three Waters and roading, looking at our rural halls and the assets that we have and potentially how we can divest those and bring some money back into the council, and then looking at other service reviews. We also want to communicate around the Hood Aerodrome upgrades that we've been undertaking. The work that is going to be a really huge piece of work around waste and waste minimisation over the next few years. You know, recently we just signed up to a regional waste minimisation and management plan and what that looks like for us to give effect to the waste strategy. We'll also be setting out our CapEx work programme, and then all of the financial content, which is what the money is, how we're going to actually fund this for all of those proposals within the long-term plan consultation. So at that point, I'll hand over to our financial guru who can take us through what they are. Mr. Paris.
Financial guru. Good morning, councillors. Just to be called a guru is quite interesting because my daughter's currently in Dharamshala, which is where the Dalai Lama resides. She's visiting India, so that's a nice little segue.
So should we call you Dala?
She's gone from one guru to another.
That's right, yeah. So the financial aspects of the long-term plan that the council is looking to consult on are based on a financial model that has underlying budgets that are the costs and revenues of the organisation, the assets that the council utilises to deliver services, the change in value in those assets in terms of revaluations, depreciation, the debt that the council has borrowed in order to renew or build some of those assets, and the cost of that debt, and looking to present a complete financial picture to show that the organisation is prudently managing its finances, because we're a public organisation dealing with public money, and that we are sustainable over the long term, the medium term and the short term, in terms of the revenue that is required to deliver the service levels that you've agreed on, and that the costs of the services being delivered are reasonable and good estimates, and we're not under budgeting and underestimating costs. We've got a series of assumptions about how we've made up those costs, and how we predict those costs to be changing over the 10 years of our plan. And all that goes into a model, and we get the high level information that is the result of sitting in the financial strategy document as it's been provided to you at the moment. So we've got a capital expenditure program. Year 1, $43 million. Year 2, $52 million. Year 3, $53 million. So it's a significant capital expenditure program for this council. Our operating expenditure sits at around $70 million. So having a capital program of $50 million is where it comes close to the operating expenditure means we're doing a lot, and the a lot is across the board. It's in roading, it's in waters, and it's in civic facilities, particularly in the first 3 years, 5 years of the plan. And the graphs in the financial strategy indicate both rates increases in those 5 years and expenditure levels in those 5 years are higher than the later years in the plan. That indicates that this council is trying to get on with the work and trying to deliver things by loading it into the first 5 years. And the plan indicates that those 5 years are achievable within the limits that the council is comfortable with, and the limits in terms of debt, the limits in terms of rates increases are laid out in that financial strategy. So we've got renewals in year 1 of 27 million. Of that 43, $27 million is renewing assets. And an average over the 10 years, we're spending at least $20 million renewing what we have. That's resealing roads, rebuilding the road pavements, relining sewer pipes or putting new sewer pipes in, water pipes, upgrading or doing replacement pipes in the stormwater assets. That's the majority of the renewals budget, is maintaining that infrastructure or renewing that infrastructure to continue to deliver the services that it was designed to do. The major capital projects that are loan funded in the plan are the library extension, the town hall civic building, the water trunk main renewal, that's the main trunk into town, and water storage. So the raw water storage dams are one of the first cabs off the rank in terms of large capital projects in the LTP. We've got an increase in debt. We start at
at 46% of net debt to operating revenue. We've got a limit of 150%, so over the first 5 years we move up to 131%, from 46 to 131. Our limit is 150. So the graph is available there on page 8 of the financial strategy. It drops away to 76% by 2034, but and I know Councillor Holmes will have an interest in the Homebush reinvestment at the end of the consent sits just outside our 10-year window, and so 2033, 34, 35, there's another $25 million of investment allowed for in the infrastructure strategy. It sits just outside our 10-year window, but it doesn't push the debt limits. It's not like we've got this big thing sitting outside our window of the financial strategy.
We'll get a question from those.
Yeah, so that's cost of debt and staying within debt limits. Operating costs and revenue is a requirement to have a balanced budget, and this LTP and financial model and financial strategy delivers a balanced budget. That is the revenue that we are bringing in covers the operating costs of the organisation. So revenue, about 60% of revenue is rates. The 40% includes NZTA subsidies, government subsidies for some of the resilience work that we're doing, user charges on regulatory services, swimming pool inspections as an example, as well as transfer station charges. So all of that revenue is in the financial model, and revenue covers our operating costs across the 10 years of the plan. If it didn't, we wouldn't be running a balanced budget, and we would be having to dip into reserves and borrow, and borrowing for operating costs is unsustainable in terms of the financial picture. So rates revenue, 60% over 10 years, there are increases indicated. So the council has rates increases indicated in the financial strategy of reasonable amounts in the first 5 years, and then a drop off in the last 5 years. Year one, the increase from current year is 10.6% average after growth. And that's followed by 7.3, 6.5. So the increases are less in the next 3 years. That's on page 11 of the financial strategy. The council in its strategy sets an increase limit, so how much rates will go up by, and we're providing that rates increase limit to the ratepayers, and the council is saying we won't increase rates by more than this limit. Year one, we breached that limit. So the limit at the moment is defined as the local government cost index, so that's inflation for councils, for local government, plus 4.5%. So that limit number is 8.4%. Our proposed rates increase for year one at 10.6% is higher than the limit. Now, all other years of the LTP financial strategy we're under that limit, and we stay within the limit. And the last 10 years, there's a graph in the financial strategy that shows we have always stayed under the limit. And I think that's a testament to this council's ability to stay within the limits it set itself. But year one, at the moment, we have a number of cost pressures resulting in the rates having to go up by more than that limit. Roading cost increases is the biggest driver, and so the level of service that the council wants to achieve in terms of renewing roads, fixing potholes, maintaining culverts, maintaining the road assets in a condition that they don't go backwards, we need to up our spending in that area. It's a cost about 16% increase in the core roading program cost over the current years. And we put forward a 3-year program to Wakakatahi for approval. They've accepted that program. They fund 56% of that program. The council funds 44%. We're also looking at having to fund debt servicing on the borrowing we've done to recover from the cyclone costs. So we've repaired the roads. We're still repairing roads that were affected by the cyclone. We've had subsidy on those repairs, but we've also had to borrow because it's unbudgeted expenditure. And we've borrowed, and there's a debt servicing cost of that borrowing. That's pushing up the cost of roading next year. The council's deliberations through the development of the long-term plan, you've indicated you want your priorities on infrastructure, water and wastewater in particular. So in the water area, water leak detection, water expenditure on fixing leaks and finding those leaks at the connections to every house where there is water leaking or coming out of the road. We put more money into that area, and that's another reason why rates are going up by more than the rate of inflation. We have inflation in the economy. The cost of doing the work and repairing and renewing assets is going up by inflation, and has gone up by inflation over a number of years. So a lot of that's catching up with us. The cost of insurance, as everyone knows, is skyrocketing. I got my renewal for my house. Last year I paid $2,500 for my house insurance. This year it's $3,600. It's an $1,100 increase. So the council's got those sort of cost pressures as well. The council's looking to move animal services costs to a 70-30 ratio of funding. So that 30% is from rates. That's an increase. That's pushing up rates. We're removing the rate smoothing. So 3 years ago, the long-term plan suppressed the rates increases by borrowing from reserves, and with the assumption that that borrowing would be put back over a number of years in the future. To remove that smoothing or that suppression of rates increases, we have to put the rates back up. We have to remove the minus that's in the system, and that's pushing up rates by more than the rate of inflation. So our 10.6% year one is an average across all the council. Has different numbers when it comes to urban and rural, and then different between property types within urban and rural. We're looking at an average of 9.3% on rural properties, 14.8% on rural. Urban. I've said the wrong thing. 9.3 on urban, 14.8 on rural. And that's roading costs again. I've just talked about those roading costs going up. 70% of subsidised roading is allocated in the rating system, and that's the council's revenue and financing policy. 70% is funded by the rural area. So that allocation and the increase in the roading cost means the rate increase in rural is higher than urban. There'll be variations between different properties. In the residential area, that 9.3 comes down to between 7 and 8% for most urban residential properties. Commercial properties are looking at a higher increase as a result of revaluations that are going to be applied. In the rural area, we've got variations between farms and lifestyle and beach and forestry because of valuation changes. And we haven't had the formal revaluation information yet. That has been promised to us for the end of next week by quotable value in the Office of the Valuer General. We've had indicative figures, and that's what I've based the numbers so far on, but by the time we get the consultation document finalised at the end of March, I'm expecting we will have the final revaluations and be able to give a better indication of where someone's valuation change, how it affects their rates change. So in terms of any individual property's rates change, there'll be three things affecting it. Policy changes that the council's decided in the revenue and financing policy by moving uniform charges and rates between uniform charges and capital values. And that was consulted on last year. So we've been through that consultation. The policy changes are included in the documents. We've got budget changes, so that's the increase of 10.6% total budget needed from rates. And we've got valuation changes, so if a property's values change, and if it moves different than an average change, they may have more or less of the rates allocation. So there's to give someone an answer about how much their rates are going to go up needs to factor in the three different moving parts of the rates. I think that's, other than the consultation issues that are listed in the document, the town hall, the library, and then the series of decisions the council's made around allocation of funding to different activities, to the grants budgets, to the things like positive ageing strategy. They're all listed. We have costed the impact of each of those decisions so that the consultation information, people can make decisions based on the financial impact of those things that the council's consulted on. Questions?
Thank you, David, for a very thorough and comprehensive report, and that's right. Any questions for David? Councillor Holmes and Councillor Goodwin.
Not actually a question, but David's made a very important point about the smoothing of the rates. And I clearly remember 3 years ago, Gary, you remember we sat here, we talked about it. It's a prime example of short-term gain, long-term gain. So my advice would be to step here and never do it again.
I think that was, if you remember, Councillor Holmes, that was because of COVID.
I realise that, but there's a principle there.
Thank you, I take your point. Councillor Goodwin?
Just a couple of queries, David. You mentioned in year 11 the home wash being 25 million. It's in the 21 LGP, it's estimated at 32. I would have thought costs should tend to move up, and if you come up with a much lower number there, because that, I know it's off the 10-year horizon, but it could be described as a fairly large sort of elephant, just standing at the very edge.
I'm probably not the best person to quote the numbers, but I do know that we don't know what it is that we're going to do to Homebush to get the next consent. So the numbers are in there, are based on an estimate that the engineers have provided based on a scenario.
I know, and I'm concerned that in the 21 LTP was estimated at 32 million. I was in council when we did the last one back in whatever it was, 15 years ago or something. And we estimated it at 23 million, and it came in a bit over at 47 million. 46, sorry, I don't want to overstate the numbers. 46 million. So it was
The whole
actually
process,
exactly,
end-to-end process.
so it was exactly double. And I'm just concerned that someone
Councillor Goodwin, this is
has
not part,
not,
this is not part of this LTP though. This is not part of, so maybe this is a discussion we need to have at a later date. Because it's not affecting today's decision.
David mentioned that when you look at our debt grade, it is kind of relevant if, for instance, it turned out to be 50 million. If, yes, we don't know, but it is a bit relevant when you look at year 11.
We're not looking at year 11. Councillor Goodwin.
If someone as wise as David Paris mentioned year 11 in relationship to debt, I would not challenge that, and in fact I would follow it.
You made your point, yes.
So I'm worried about that number. The other issue is a bit of advice. We currently have a policy of increasing the rates up to 4.5% on top of local government inflation index. The way forward, I would like to put a motion that we change that number. I think it's a bit high myself. And I don't think we should just continue with that 4.5. And it would require us, I understand, to put the change in this document and consult on. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like your guidance or someone's guidance. Should I put a motion, I'm just signalling that I'll put a motion that we address that number and consult on it in this document. I just want to change it from 4.5 to something a bit smaller. Simple.
Can I clarify, ahead of going out to consultation, or ahead of going out to consultation, or to have that?
Well, I thought you would just put it in the book. It's just one of the things we want to consult on, is should we leave it as it is? In other words, should we do nothing? Or should we talk about it maybe and change it?
That to be feasible?
It's a limit, and if the limit is lower and you still want to do the projects that are in the LTP and deliver those for the community and incur the debt and incur the rates increases that result from delivering a town hall, for example, why would you say we're going to have this limit and we're going to breach it? We know we want to do these projects and this is where we need the revenue to deliver the projects, but we don't think we're going to have a policy doesn't match. It is a mismatch. At the moment your policy is 4.5 and you can deliver the projects and stay within the 4.5. If you drop the 4.5, you've got to question whether you are committed to doing those projects.
Well, that's an interesting spin on it. I would have thought in this document, we are going and consulting with our ratepayers on a whole lot of projects. And I have to disagree with you that it would be entirely consistent to say that council want to change that number. And this will have consequences.
don't think it would have been good to have brought this up beforehand? You don't think it would have been prudent to have brought this up beforehand?
Well, this is the document to put it in.
Okay, we'll just,
And,
you made your point, Brent. Okay, any further questions of David? Councillor Lee.
Yeah, just in line with Councillor Goodwin's, does that rule need to be part of the long-term plan, or can that be debated and discussed at any point in our council agendas?
I suppose it's in the long-term plan. It's part of the financial strategy. It's one of the measures that we need to report on every year that we have stayed within or we've breached it. And it becomes part of the annual reporting to the community. To change it, you need to change it in the long-term plan when the financial strategy is decided on.
so it's got to go on today.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Okay, the recommendations are on page 101, so people move those recommendations. Councillor Bayer, seconded. I'll second that. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, I suppose I just hope it's clear in the wording that will go in the plan that I think David, you made a comment on the 5-year sort of run of quite high increases. And I guess, I just hope it's very clear in the wording that over 5 years, that's an increase of over 40% to the average rateable profit. So someone over there paying $4,000 a year rates, in 5 years, they'll be paying another $1,600. And it's just, I just hope it's very clear. I hate people to get blindsided by what is actually quite a large increase. It's a very large increase. Someone complained about their insurance going up $1,100. Well, this is, for some people, a much bigger increase on their rates. So I just, that's my concern, that we don't shy away from spelling out where this document is taking us.
I think the graphs in the document clearly show that, Councillor Goodwin, and anybody that reads it will notice that.
Yeah, I'm saying I hope it's in the wording, in the summary documents and those sorts of things, because, this is, often people go out and the summary documents at other places, and I just want this emphasised so that it doesn't sort of slip off the page.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Almeida?
It's taken seems like a long time to get to this point, and a huge amount of work by our staff. So I just want to acknowledge the work of our staff in getting us to this point. Just in terms of the consultation document itself, like all of us, we probably don't all agree 100% on everything that's in there. But as a council, we've pretty much approved collectively where we're at this point. So I'm comfortable with this document being the basis of what's going to go out to our community. A couple of thoughts though. My feeling is this council and the community have a bit of a preference, I guess, in terms of the overall focus of council around infrastructure. And it'd be kind of nice to have in that information only section where we're not seeking feedback, but we're acknowledging we've increased our expenditure on infrastructure. I think that would be good for our community. Overall, I guess I'm personally not comfortable with where we've landed, in terms of rates, in terms of debt. I think if we get any unexpected expenditures in the next 3 to 10 years, it's going to blow those rates projections out of the water. So, yeah, personally for me, I'm not happy, but for me, I think us as councillors, we need to take a look, I'm talking about elected members, and how we get to this point. I believe we've got to sharpen up our process. We've got to be much clearer on our purpose and our priorities, in my view. We've got to be much more evidence-based in what we approve and what we don't approve. It seems to me good things come along and we say yes to them, as opposed to having a strategic focus on where we need to go collectively with every initiative. We need better structures in terms of how we deal with trade-offs between one initiative and another, and we need to be more conscious of where we want to be in terms of rates, in terms of the charges and costs we're imposing on our community with this plan. So yes, I support this document, this draft consultation document, but going forward, and Kim, maybe I'm asking you to take a stronger lead in terms of guiding us, in terms of a process going forward, so we can be more strategic and evidence-based in terms of how we get to this point in the future. But again, thanks to all the huge amount of work that's gone into this document.
Thank you, Councillor, and I'm sure there'll be a number of us who will have some comments. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to, one thing I guess I would follow up Tom and say, from my point of view, in the 14 years I've had on council, this is now the most challenging environment, local government environment that I've ever experienced. I think David would probably agree with that as well. There is no question that a 10.6 rate increase is going to create hardship for some people. There's no doubt about that. And so I don't think we're sitting here celebrating around the table about the fact that we may very well have the lowest rate increase in the lower North Island. But that's not a celebration. That's something that we've worked hard to get to. But as Tom just mentioned there, you know, maybe we need to work harder. I don't know. It isn't something that's sustainable for people when we keep on increasing our rates, and I think everybody appreciates that. And I want to follow up with Tom to say that this has been, people get the real impression, you know, that they kick you in the teeth for rate increases and whatever, without thinking of the fact that the people around this table aren't here to make life difficult for their ratepayers. In fact, it's the very opposite. All of us have come on council to try and make things easier for our ratepayers and to actually make a difference. And it's quite hurtful, I think, when some people come out on social media or whatever and slam the hell out of us when we've given hours and hours and hours of work into trying to come up with the best decisions. And I'll say that really strongly. There's a lot of discussion in the media at the moment regarding the stress and mental stress particularly that councillors are under these days. And I would hate to think that, and I just hope that you people around this table can manage that, because it is tricky, and we know that in the next few days and weeks there will be people coming at us from all angles, slating us for being incompetent and using all sorts of words like that, when in actual fact we know damn bloody well we've worked really hard to get it to where it is. And to follow that, I want to say from this, to me, to the start, you guys are amazing. David and your team, Karen, your team, Tanya, the whole lot of you, you've done it. This has been if you think it's been challenging for the elected members, I think that this has been even more challenging for staff, because they have to come up with the tough decisions that we work on. And too often, I think, again, the staff are blamed for decision making when it's actually us around the table who make the decisions, not staff. So I want to say particularly a huge thanks to staff. It's been terrific. And, you know, I'm not going to say that I've enjoyed the process of working through with you, because it's been such a damn difficult process. But you guys have done a magnificent job, so thanks for that. So with all that, I'll put the recommendations on page 101. I will move. Somebody second. Councillor Bayer. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll now close this meeting.